Hi, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Cam. I'm Dr. Christopher Mitchell, and I'm excited to introduce you to Geopipe. So I'd like to start with a question. Have you ever considered what it would take to create a perfect copy of New York, San Francisco, or Paris that you could explore on your computer? That's a question that my co-founder and I faced when we first imagined the problem and the technology behind Geopipe. So I'd love to tell you a little bit more about it. Geopipe is building immersive digital twins of the real world for gaming, simulation, architecture, and construction. We do this by rapidly modeling real cities from raw sensor data, labeling every single structure, object, and material in the world with what it is, not just how it looks, and doing this automatically. We use AI to understand these facets of the real world. When we started Geopipe, we had an interesting problem in that the scope of the problem was significantly larger than we had anticipated. We first became interested in this problem through the video game space, from trying to put the real world into immersive video games. But we quickly discovered that 3D maps and 3D models of the world were important for tasks from visualization to simulating the world to allowing people to virtually interact with the world in everything from gaming to training personnel and autonomous vehicles to various problems in architecture, engineering, construction, and real estate, even things as far afield as quantifying buildings and trees for insurance purposes. And very early, we found that there was lots of data available. That data was increasingly democratized. That there were companies that were flying drones, driving helicopters, driving cars, and collecting things like photographs, laser scans, and traditional GIS data. But we equally found that customers didn't just need raw data. Raw data is not very useful to their applications. You can't create a real-time simulation or visualization. You can't understand the massings of buildings that are already in the world from this raw data. Our customers needed actual 3D models and 3D data about the world that they could use. So Geopipe is that missing link between data collection and data presentation. We're dealing in the $17 billion in 2020 space of 3D mapping and modeling, within which about $8 billion will be spent this year specifically on 3D mapping, not just in architecture, engineering, construction, and real estate, but also in games and media, in training and defense, and in automotive spaces. As I said, I'm Dr. Christopher Mitchell. I am Geopipe's co-founder and CEO. I got my PhD in computer science from NYU, and I've been passionate about this problem for many years now. I co-founded the company with my longtime friend and colleague, Thomas Dickerson, also a computer science PhD, who completed his studies at Brown University, focusing on applying the algorithmic lens to interdisciplinary deep learning problems. And William Pryor, who spent 7 years in the drone data space and has extensive experience working with 3D data, is our VP of Biz Dev and Sales. We round out the team with 3 other full-timers, 6 part-timers or others, and an advisory board with expertise spanning business, entrepreneurship, and academia. We are making it possible to instantly get rich 3D models of the real world for architecture and related problems. And we found that today, architects can spend up to an hour per city block just creating plain white massings of a few buildings once they determine where those buildings are, how tall they are, what kind of roofs they have, and so on. If they need to add colors and textures to these detailed models, it can quadruple that time. If you need an entire neighborhood, depending on the level of detail, it can take hundreds of hours to months. With Geopipe, you can download a model of any size at any level of detail instantly. In the future, we're looking at applications in gaming. Today, game developers, just like architects, need rich 3D models of the real world to put in their games. And like architects, they spend hundreds of person months manually modeling even small, a few square mile areas of existing cities. Open world sandbox games are increasingly popular these days, especially as people are stuck inside more and are missing the real world outside their door. And with Geopipe, they can get these same rich 3D models duplicating every detail of the real world. And finally, our future applications include training personnel and autonomous vehicles in cities where we can find and reproduce every curb, every lane, every tree, and every lamppost in the real world. Geopipe's first application was built expressly with the AEC and real estate markets in mind. It's called Geopipe Context Map. It runs in a web browser, and it lets our customers see our 3D cities directly in a web browser. This isn't Google Earth, this is Geopipe's data. And Unlike something like Google Earth, for example, we know exactly what's in the world, not just how it looks. So starting to use this tool, you can do things like see our existing cities, click on buildings, and see exactly what we know about them. From physical characteristics like the elevation of the ground, to the heights of buildings, to the types of roof they have, to more qualitative information that we get from various partners, like when buildings were built and how they're zoned. With Geopipe Context Map, most importantly, you can then select an area that you need for your own application, choose a level of detail that you need from a plain white massing up through a fully textured, color detailed model with every window cut out of the side of every building, and the file format that's appropriate to your application, whether that's FBX, OBJ, DAE, GLTF, OpenSceneGraph, or many others. You can then download that model to use in your own applications, in your own workflow, whether you need to do things like visualize how a new building will fit into an existing zoning envelope, how it'll shadow a neighboring park, if solar panels will fit on the roof, and then later in your projects, things like how a particular set of materials or colors will fit on that building, if it will block a protected view corridor, and finally, even create immersive visualizations, VR experiences, and virtual walkthroughs to help sell that property. This is an example from a customer showing the construction process of adding an addition to an existing building, not only showing the building itself, but showing how they'll manage things like traffic workflow around that construction area. As we continued to explore not just the AEC space, but the gaming space as well, we discovered that customers across our verticals need to take our models and not only use them in existing rendering, editing, and design software, but also need to create immersive visualizations. And whether they're architects, construction professionals, or game developers, they're using game engines like Unity and Unreal in order to build these applications. Therefore, about a year ago, we added a new product called the Geopipe API and SDK that allows you to build immersive tours, visualizations, and VR experiences directly in Unity with Geopipe's 3D worlds. You can build an experience like this showing Soho and downtown Manhattan in just a few minutes. We consider one of the coolest parts of Geopipe how it works under the hood. We start with this raw sensor data about the world, laser scans, aerial photographs, traditional GIS data, some of the same types of data you may have seen before or even have collected. We then pass this through our rich deep learning pipeline that first segments out the world, figuring out where every building is, every tree is, every street and sidewalk is, and for each of those objects, inspects it to understand exactly what it's made of, where its windows and doors are, where its setbacks are, where the HVAC chillers and water towers are on the roofs, how tall and wide trees are. And then we go one step further, taking these rich 3D maps describing everything in the world and turning them into rich 3D models and environments that you can actually see, work with, manipulate, even 3D print back into physical objects if you want. And we're working in a space that we classify based on how automated and flexible the solutions are. We build 3D models like Google Earth, except they're flexible enough that you can actually pull models out and use them in your own software. They're not just photogrammetry that does a good job of showing how the world looks, but you can't really use it in your own applications. And on the other axis, unlike Esri and Mapbox, we don't rely on human annotated OpenStreetMap data, or worse, an architect sitting there and hand outlining building footprints for dozens of hours. We use our AI to automatically understand what's in the world. We license our models to AEC customers based on a monthly per seat license between $500 and $1,000 per user per month. And you can continue to use our rapidly updating models as long as you're a customer. If you need to then take those models and republish them in a piece of software, like a tool, especially a game that might be used by a broader base of customers, we charge a royalty based on that use quantity. We bootstrapped ourselves over the last 3.5 years to produce deep tech that actually works underlying these two powerful products, Geopipe Context Map and the Geopipe API and SDK. Hundreds and hundreds of customer discovery interviews, beta and paying enterprise customers, and deep development have allowed us to find our product market fit. And we're now scaling to prove out that product market fit, meet traction KPIs and important product milestones over the next year, and respond actively to the feedback that we're getting from our AEC and gaming customers. We've also succeeded in getting the funding that we need to build Geopipe through tenures in the Techstars NYC Accelerator Program, the Creative Destruction Lab, the Genius NY program in Central New York, and investment from the NSF, angel investors, and many others. If you're as excited as we are about being able to instantly turn the real world into immersive, rich digital twins, to solve problems in planning, analysis, visualization, and simulation, we would love to talk to you. We are Geopipe.